Hello and welcome to Agri History. In this episode, we'll cover the domestication of soybeans. Soybeans, also known as glycine max, is part of the pea family and is economically one of the most important beans in the world. This bean acts as a vegetable protein for millions of people. It also acts as an industrial product used to make hundreds of chemical products. In this episode, we will cover the origins and domestication of soybeans. The soybean was likely cultivated and domesticated from wild soybean in East Asia between 6,000 to 9,000 years ago. The historical evidence suggests that soybean was introduced from northeastern China at approximately 2510 BP, but the land races with the highest genetic diversity are found in the Yellow River area of Asia. This makes the Yellow River a prime candidate for soybean domestication. However, it's also been proposed that soybeans were domesticated in the Yangtze Basin in southern China, based on current genetic diversity. There is, however, an absence of archaeological evidence to support that claim. Based on current evidence, the common soybean was likely bred from the species Glycine soja, due to the similarities in morphology and genetics, and the ease of which both species interbreed with each other. There's also a third species called Glycine gracilis. This is considered an evolutionary byproduct or intermediary of the transition from the wild species to the domesticated species. Likewise, due to the similarities to both wild and domesticated soybeans, and the ability of this soybean species to crossbreed with our domesticated soybeans, as well as chloroplast comparisons between both species. Land races from the Yellow River area seem to have the highest level of crossbreeding between the wild and domesticated species. Using DNA sequencing technology, it is likely that all soybeans are derived from a single population of Glycine soja wild soybeans. This seems to support the single origin hypothesis of soybean domestication. Similarly, when geneticists use their technology to make a family tree of all soybeans, all 79 land races are closely clustered together, adding more evidence to this hypothesis. All soybean land races have the same non-shattering gene called the SHAT15 gene. This has led to a wide acceptance of the single origin hypothesis for soybeans. But there's another hypothesis out there called the multiple origin hypothesis. Comparative genetic analysis of multiple populations of soybean, wild and domesticated, and the analysis of the genes of their chloroplasts and nuclear DNA seem to suggest multiple origins for many different soybean types. Since Korean and Japanese soybeans possess significantly different gene pools in their chloroplasts and nuclear genomes, there have also been archaeological records showing larger seeds in Japan and Korea compared to those found in China in the Yellow River Basin during the period of 5000 to 3000 BP. This case gets supported further by the appearance of pottery in Japan dated between 7000 to 5000 BP with soybean drawings on it. In China near the Yellow River, the Jiahu site is found. It is in this archaeological site that rice and soybean samples have been found, and the sediment layer that surrounds the soybean is dated between 9000 and 8600 BP. But the earliest known samples of soybean were found in a site known as Dehe Kun, dated between 5000 and 5900 BP. In South Korea, the earliest known site for soybeans dates to 3500 BP in the Mumun period in South Korea. In Japan, the earliest known appearances of soybean appear in the Middle Jomon era, at approximately 5000 BP, based on experiments comparing the sizes of different soybean samples and measuring it over a period of time using different sites of known age. It appears that soybean seeds have increased in size over time, with the rate of the increase in size varying from country to country. In China, for instance, the soybeans retain some of their wild traits like smaller seeds until the Erlito Shang period, between 4000 and 3600 BP. In Korea, the transition to larger seeds took place between 4500 BP and 3500 BP. In Japan, soybean seed increase seems to begin around 5000 BP in the Middle Jomon period, and continues to grow in size through 3600 BP. So in ancient times, there is a general trend of increasing seed size in soybeans. Soybeans came to North America in 1765 when it was introduced by Samuel Bowen. Samuel Bowen received the seed from China, where it was referred to as Chinese vetch. Samuel Bowen used this seed to make soy sauce and received a patent for it. Soybeans later came to Canada in the mid-1800s as a research crop, where it was eventually developed into the soybean we know today. There were a few pockets of soybean farming in the 1920s, but it began ramping up in the 1970s. This happened due to breeding for soybeans with a shorter growing season and a higher cold tolerance. This expanded the range of soybeans from the few regions in southwestern Ontario that could grow US cultivars. And now in 2016, soybeans can be grown in many areas in Canada. This concludes our video on soybeans. Stay tuned for a video on brassicas. See you then!